Let's. Okay, cool. So just before we go into this, for the sake of, we are talking about mental health, obviously, so some trigger warnings if people struggle with those things. We are going to be talking about mental health, so just be aware of that. Likewise, I take quite a jovial attitude towards it, I would say, based upon the idea that if you can laugh at something, then it's no longer scary. It doesn't hold power over you. So by ridiculing it, not the suffering, not all that sort of stuff, and trying to make lighthearted of it, hopefully it takes away some of that fear. So yeah, so this is my presentation on how I learned to stop worrying and learn to love being genki. So I'm going to try sharing my screen quickly. This is the role of the ALT and utilizing mindfulness within the classroom, how I learned to stop worrying and learn to love being genki. So first of all, we need to start out with working out what it is we actually do. Because when we have a common idea, we can start to understand the effect that this can have on us. So with that in mind, if people want to call out, and because I've got my screen shared, I can't really see it, but check the chat. What are some positive ideas? What are some positive words we can associate with being an ALT? Don't all jump at once. By all means, the silence is really comfortable. Well, I'll tell you, I'll get the ball rolling and go to my next slide then at least.
Well, in the chat, Daniel, there's a couple of comments in the chat. Somebody put support, somebody put cultural ambassador.
Brilliant, yeah.
A window into authentic culture.
That's great.
There's 3.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Nathan, for that. So yes, this is, I had to get a Castlevania joke in. What is an ALT but a miserable pile of secrets? And this will be my final form as a teacher. So I'll say some of the positive ideas I've got is, like I said, it's kind, understanding, fun, professional, supportive, engaging. So from that list, I'm going with fun, engaging, and supportive. We have here the idea of someone in the classroom who the students feel happy being with. They enjoy being around, and we help them to develop their communication skills whilst supporting the teacher. This is the same for our role outside of the classroom. One could argue even more so. But once we have established through these things, through being kind, fun, engaging, and supportive, and all that stuff, once we've established that sort of relationship, we can start to see more enthusiastic conversations. We can learn more about the students. So by being that positive influence within the school, within the classroom, we can really utilize all the various qualifications, the experience, and our passion towards the school. And ultimately, we're a positive person in both mood and action. Okay, so we kind of got an idea of the good sides of it. This is the positive image that we have, the idea of what we do as an ALT. It is, I think we can agree, a little rosy and a little idealistic. I don't think that's maybe too far outside the realms of possibility to say that for some of us, this might not be the case. For those of us where it is, brilliant, you're amazing people to have been able to establish yourself like that. However, for some of us, this might be quite far from the truth of how our role has become, or how it was even from the start. We all have some negative ideas and images of what an ALT can be. So because I'm such a cheerful person, I'm going to get the ball rolling with some negative ideas. And this is the tape recorder, the dreaded dancing monkey who's just there to sing a song and is a caricature of themselves. We can be ignored, we can be spare parts, overlooked, and quite replaceable. You know, there have been times when a mop, a tape recorder, and a young picture of Prince William could have done my job in the lessons, and I felt super valued in the staff room afterwards. So has anyone got any other ideas? Is anyone comfortable sharing some of the negative ideas around being an ALT? Nathan, would you mind reading from the chat for me, please?
Yeah, if anything comes in, of course I will, buddy.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm imagining just like everyone's itching to respond here, and this whole section, I thought, yeah, we'll get a good discussion going.
Yeah, people can turn their mics on and jump in any time, right?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Crikey. The negative ideas, I mean, I don't know if people are going to hold back, but
God.
people online, people bitch about this a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
Agorà and LT training online is more, you know, positive, and
Yeah.
we're trying to create the atmosphere.
Yeah.
But maybe
I
the
know there
audience
is
knows things. Okay, so somebody's put definitely don't feel like a tape recorder. So a negative one is feel like a family pet. We are scared about, but we aren't really part of the family. I read that terribly. Like the family pet, we are cared about, but aren't really part of the family. Somebody put an entertainer, not an educator. Another one, meeting a standard. Students need to hear a certain amount of English. We are the tool to make that happen.
cool. That's brilliant. That is brilliant. So, yeah, as someone said, we kind of find ourselves as a bit of a pet, you know, like an unwanted pet. A stray dog is what I have. Our ideas can be ignored, our experience, and things like that. I just sort of put to one side because the MEXT guidelines must be followed. Rah, rah, rah. It's hard. It's the hard, uncaring side of this industry. And sometimes we don't feel supported. We don't feel cared for. This could be, you know, because our company might not be very good, or the environment at the school is a little bit difficult, or maybe it's just the horrible situation that everyone's really busy and they just don't have the, you know, the mental energy to babysit us, you know, or to take that time to engage with us for lots of reasons. Now, that was really depressing. So I've got two amazing jokes for you. When did people start eating eggs in Japan? A long time ago. And what is the IC called in Japanese? The highway. Now I'll wait for the gales of laughter I'm sure you all have. I'll just bask in the marvels of my comedy. Actually, if you wanted to know, it was 400 years ago was when they started eating eggs. And yes, I looked that up. So you might be wondering why I've made you all miserable. Why British 10 out of 10? Yeah, that's pretty right. Why I've made you all miserable? Because it's important to have this awareness of our positions. We will be many things to many different people. Within one school, your role within each class could be vastly different. You face this juxtaposition of being placed in a position of responsibility, but nothing but your own personality to really back it up. Likewise, you can be a tape recorder in one lesson and you can be T1 in the next lesson. You can be stuck at the back of the classroom trying your best to engage and having no luck whatsoever, or you can be the superstar teacher that everyone wants to talk to, everyone wants to get on with. And that can be really hard to change your mindset between all of that. And it's fair to say that that is an emotional strain and a mental strain to put on us that at times isn't really talked about. It's something that we kind of sweep under the carpet a little bit. And to touch on quickly, you know, we then have our relationships with our JTEs or our homeroom teachers. And that in itself can be a delicate balance based on trust that could break at any time. It could be one that could be forged in the fire of 6 lessons a day, 5 days a week, or it could be broken before we even get there because of experiences, negative experiences with other people. That's not our fault, but we're still bearing the strain of that. you know, we've got outside influences coming in, we've got testing quotas to meet, we've got pressure from the boards of education, we can have challenging parents, shall we say, who demanding one-on-one lessons in a 32 student classroom. And that, even if it doesn't come directly down on us, we still have some of that stress. So what does this all mean? Well, it doesn't mean myopic nihilism, that everything is terrible, you know, the doom and gloom you see on the internet. As we've said, this is a positive, fun environment. But also it's not blind positivity. It's not this tunnel vision that everything is fine, everything is great, when, you know, maybe there's something that needs to be addressed. It's understanding that, you know, things are good and things are bad, and that's okay, that sometimes we aren't going to have the chance to be the perfect ALT, and that sometimes you're going to be the star of the show and sometimes you're not. And our job can be rather vague at times. So I think it's kind of important for us to know the good and the bad. So as I lose place slightly. Now, this point we've been going on for about 10, 15 minutes here, and I have a confession to make to you all here. To this point, I have lied to you. I have bamboozled and befuddled you, pulled a fast one, engaged in chicanery of the highest order, duped and humbug. I have browsed dictionaries for synonyms, and in short, I have mugged you off, sunshine. You see, I am what my father once described as a sad clown made of old ham in the rain. And I don't think I'm alone in having this description sometimes, that sometimes we're a bit sad. You know, we have all been a soggy jester at some point in our careers. We've just gone through this mental mindfulness, mental minefield of our position and some of the stresses that can cause. So going forwards, we're going to look at some of the ways in which we can stop that from running rampant and taking over, and how we can keep a positive mindset within lessons. You know, we can't not talk about mental health within ALTs, within the ALT industry. Everybody struggles with it, and there's no shame in that fact. You only need to go anywhere online and you see post after post after post. If I've been here for a month, I hate it. I've been here for 3 months. This isn't what I expected. And you see a lot of people struggling daily. And this is part of what motivated me to come up with this. But hopefully with some of these simple mindfulness tools, we can stop it from getting bad. I'm not going to sit here and profess and say this will cure every problem magically, but with a little bit of soul searching, some whale songs, bang, you're onto a winner. It's not going to, it's going to help you. But, you know, there might be some deeper problems that maybe you do need to go and see a professional about. And again, there's no shame, there's no stigma to that. But what we're going to do is try and find some techniques and some ideas that can help us. So you could look at things like journaling, which I joked about earlier, but getting your thoughts out onto the page can be quite useful. We can look at square breathing, which if you're having a moment of anxiety or panic or stress, can be really useful, which is just a deep breath in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, release for 4 seconds, and then begin the process again, you know, and your body's just counting and it's reasserting that natural flow of your airways. We're going to look at having patience with ourselves and with our students, not getting too hung up on mistakes and approaching things with a clear mind. And with that, not setting unrealistic goals for students, for staff, and for ourselves. Accepting how things work in class and in school are different to what we might have expected. And be used to prevent things that could become big issues from developing so they become a problem. And with that, learning to let things go rather than dwelling on it. Mostly, it's going to be having some self-care, this idea of looking after yourself, because no one wins if you beast yourself every day. What we're hoping to do here is have some time to get our ducks in order, so you aren't carrying this all the time. So this isn't something you're walking around with, okay? So to lose my mouse and to go back to my mouse now, there we go. So Oh yes, just for a bit of hilarity, here's me in a bear costume that was going to be related to a cockpit on absurdism and the role of the ALT, which if we have time, we'll get back to later. But you can see I'm a very serious individual. So here we have some ideas of mindfulness that we're going to look at: self-reflection, patience and empathy, exercise and music, it's okay to be sad, callous the mind, and self-love. So with that in mind, let's jump into self-reflection. So a part of this mindfulness lark is taking time for self-reflection. And when we're starting out in our careers, when we're doing our training and things like that, we're encouraged to look back on lessons and unpick the good and the bad. I'm sure some of us still do this. And the same can be done for ourselves. I'm not talking about some Nietzschean journey to the center of the soul or a deconstruction of who we are, but it's as simple as saying we have a lesson that falls a bit flat, okay? It's not the best. None of us enjoy it. We're going to have 5 minutes in our day, and that can be at any point, any time, walking home, at the conbini, whenever. And just have a think and try to work out what went wrong. Is it something within our control, or is it something that's not? Was it how you said something? Did that come across too forceful or too gentle? Or was it the fact that the kids were absolutely cream crackered having just done PE? In doing a bit of this self-reflection after each lesson, you can start to build up an idea of the emotional moods within the classroom, both yourself and the students. And once you start to develop this knowledge and understanding, you become like a bit of a sea captain, because you can start to tell when they're in good moods, when they're in bad moods, what behavior you can do to bring that up or to maybe slow things down. And hopefully the boat of the lesson sails through the seas of the children's mood smoothly. Look, I know the analogy breaks down a bit there, but you kind of get what I mean, right? So we can then apply this mindset to lessons that have gone well as well, okay? So as I said, take notice when they react well to something, when they have a positive reaction to a voice you use, to a gestures you used, to a joke or anything like that. And then think, how was your mood in that? What made you do what you did? How did your actions and emotions help to make the lesson positive? Because we need to have that positivity. It's worth remembering that there are positives and negatives in any lesson, and we should do our best to try and understand them. So doing this self-reflection has two main benefits. First, it's to make you think in a positive way. You aren't just looking at what you did wrong and forcing, digging down into how bad you are and negative ideas like that, but you're forcing yourself as well to look at the positives. Even in the worst lesson, and I've had some absolute stinkers, including 2 children screaming, crying, whilst the principal and the Board of Education watched on, there are still some positives, even in that terrible lesson. Secondly, finding things which cause a positive reaction with a student goes towards helping you to build that relationship with students. And in establishing that relationship with the students, you help move beyond the idea of just being the ALT, as we talked about earlier, just being that token foreigner for whatever reason. You become a real person. You establish in-jokes with staff and students, and you become someone that they remember, and that helps open the doorway. And the chances are, if the kids are happy to see you, you're going to be pretty happy to see them, because you're not going to be dreading going to the lessons. For ourselves, this self-reflection can help us to understand our emotions a bit better. It allows us to step away from the raw emotion of the instance, oh my God, that was terrible, I'm never going to teach again, I'm off to go and be a radish farmer in Hokkaido. Makes us unpack what caused a negative reaction for us. And once we know the cause, we can start looking at why we felt that way. Is it a problem we have with ourselves? Is this something that we may need to look at and to address and to try and understand? Or is this a situation that's outside of our control? It's just what we find ourselves in. Is this something you can or can't change? Is what it fundamentally boils down to. And this is really useful in lessons that have gone wrong. there's no point blaming yourself if you couldn't control it. But likewise, having that honesty with yourself to recognize, yeah, I probably did mess up a little bit then, but you're doing it in a healthy way, okay? So I've got ahead in my notes. So what we can start to do from here is look at maybe patience and empathy, but self-reflection is one of those really important tools to have in our mental toolbox. It allows us to have that objectivity and to think about what it is we're doing and why we're doing it, okay? And so that next time we hopefully don't make those mistakes, or if we do, we maybe understand it a little bit better. So next up, we're going to look at patience and empathy. And this is for students and for ourselves, okay? We can all agree, as I've just said, there are lessons where students' behavior is disruptive. We can see the effects that this has on students and teachers and how it affects us. I had a really challenging lesson today where I have two students with severe behavioral problems that aren't being dealt with for a variety of factors, and that can be tough going in lessons at times. But you feel frustrated, you're human at times, but with patience and empathy, we can move beyond that. I mean, obviously it goes without saying 100%. You must have patience for students. They're children after all, they're not at the stage of adults where they've developed that emotional maturity. However, blind patience can also be a negative. It can lead to ignoring a problem. It can lead to frustration, and it can lead to an apathy. I'm sure we have examples of this. So it's why it's so important these two things go together, that patience and empathy go hand in hand. Using self-reflection that we talked about earlier, we can try and understand maybe what's causing students to act the way they are. Is this that they're desperate for attention for a variety of reasons? Is this a fear response? Or is this an issue that is outside of our control? And it's important to try and understand this, because once you've established empathy and you're not just blindly going, oh, okay, but you're sitting there going, I get where you're coming from. I do understand why you're acting the way you are, why you feel the way you do. We can start to have better patience. Now, of course, we can't solve the children's issues. We are by no means equipped to deal with these things. And in many cases, it would be dangerous for us to try and do that. Backseat psychology, he says, can be dangerous at times. But what we can be is someone who doesn't react with a negative emotion. We are someone that can try and understand them. We are someone that they can look at, and maybe they can feel comfortable engaging with us. And that's, we can, as we talk about support, that's how you can support the teacher within the classroom. In combining patience and empathy together, we can help to become a positive presence within the classroom and with the students and the wider school. We're someone that doesn't get riled. Plenty of stories about negative ALTs who lost their patience. I know horror stories of a guy who'd walked into a classroom and scribbled respect onto the board and shouted at the students for half an hour. I mean, that's no patience, that's no empathy. And likewise, I know people that have been in some really challenging situations and haven't let their emotions get the control of them. The second part I want to talk about quickly is the patience with ourselves. This is closely linked to self-reflection, as what we uncover about ourselves needs to be dealt with patience. This can be accepting that the goals and aspirations which we have take time to achieve. No one's an amazing teacher from the start, after a year, after 2 years even. That's to say nothing of our own personal development. Mastering a sport, a martial art, learning Japanese is a Herculean task that requires infinite patience. That can be patience with ourselves for our careers developing and things like that. that's not to say we accept and allow disruptive habits in ourselves or negative behavior, but it's patience with ourselves, not holding ourselves to these impossible standards. To use a wretched cliche that I do despise, but it's unfortunately the best one, is that life is a marathon, not a sprint. And as someone past 30 now, my sprinting days are long done. You know, things can be tough, and you've just got to have that patience with yourself to keep on going, you know, to not be so hard on yourself. So I talked briefly about marathons as a wonderful segue. We're going to get into exercise and music. For those of you that don't know, this is a man called Mr. Motivator, who was very popular on British TV in the 90s. And during the Corona lockdown, he came back onto TV to help people exercise within their homes. He is the most positive example of exercise and music I can think of. He's genuinely a lovely man. I, however, am a sloth that pretends to be a human. I've constructed a really good human costume because I'm incredibly lazy and I do like to hang from trees. However, and this hurts me more than any of the other things in my life that have hurt me, exercise is really good for us. As I said, I'm past 30 now, and the quality of life improvements I've had since I've started stretching in the mornings has been mind-blowing. And for a start, I can touch my toes now and my back doesn't hurt, which is always lovely. But a really good thing about exercise is that we're starting off with a good routine. So you get up, you do 15 minutes of stretches. You know, all of us can find 10, 15 minutes in our day, and you're not cocooning yourself in bed, pressing snooze on the alarm the whole time, pretending it's Sunday, all these negative ideas and association, rah, 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 rah. We're getting up, we're doing something, you know, and this is physically beneficial if you've got 6 lessons, or if you're, you know, driving the desk for a couple of hours. You know, the chairs, not sure about you guys, but the chairs I have in the staff room are a little bit sore on a 6'2" man. It's got, you know, as well as the physical benefits, there's the psychological benefits of we've completed something. We have started our day by doing something and we've achieved it. However small that is, we've done something. And if you've done one thing, well, you can do the next thing, and you can do the next thing, and you can do the next thing. And it builds like a snowball going down a hill. God, that's another terrible cliche, isn't it? But it's something good that we've started our day with, and that's pretty wonderful, isn't it? You know, you're setting off for work and your knees aren't sore, your back isn't sore, you've pulled yourself from that tempting grasp of the bed, and you're up and you're going. So this is where music comes in, at least for me. We all have some commute to work. I'm really lucky in that I just have a 20-minute walk. But it's really easy, you know, if you're taking the train or buses and things like that, to let your commute become a bit of a slog. I'm not going to sit here and say you should use that time for studying and maximize your effectiveness, because I think, as I've proven, I'm not very effective. But what it can be is a chance to start charging up that mental battery, especially if you're heading into a tough day. And again, this is going to sound like some real eat, pray, love stuff, and it's not, and it'll become very clear. So get yourself a playlist together. It's not like whale songs and bird calls and stuff like that. Get something that gets your blood pumping, you know, that gets some fire in your belly, that, you know, sticks a smile on your face. My current music that I listen to at the moment is System of a Down, Maximum the Hormones, Chainsaw Man outro, and Tracy Chapman, which, yes, that's a mix. But at the end of that, I am full of beans. You know, I can teach 6 lessons, laminate 100 flashcards, and work out the pluralities of 100 different animals, which was a fun Monday. And likewise, we can build, as much as we have a playlist for giving ourselves energy, we can also start putting together music that, if we're having a tough time, if we're feeling sad and things like that, that can help cheer us up. the important thing with associating music with exercise and with our mental health in general is that it's something you have a positive reaction to, positive memories to. That if you're feeling a bit homesick, if you're feeling down, under the weather, whatever it is, it makes you feel a little bit good about yourself. The new Death Clock album, by the way, is really good if you're into that sort of thing. So whatever it is, when times are tough, stick some music on. There's no point sitting there in silence, listening to the hubbub of a commuter train, or sat in the car listening to honking horns and terrible radio. Listen to something you actually enjoy. Now, as I've already said, I'm an incredibly positive person. So we're going to talk about being sad quickly, and I don't know how much longer I've got left, so I will be sad if I've run out of time and I end on this. But it's okay to be sad. It's natural. We're human. Not everyone is happy all the time. Even Bob Ross said you've got to have a little bit of grey with the white to make the clouds pop. You aren't a failure as an ALT or as a human if you're sad. We're told over and over again, you've always got to smile, stick a maniacal grin on your face. Always, you can never let the kids see you sad. Well, okay, yeah, you can't walk around, looking doom and gloom, but you can't deny yourself those feelings. For a start, it's not very healthy for you. It's not, physically, it takes a toll on your body, and the mental toll is, it's up there with being pretty destructive. And secondly, the kids know, especially if you're teaching elementary school, they are so emotionally aware. It's shocking. They can tell, even if they don't understand it, they can tell when something's wrong. And that has a knock-on effect, because if they're getting a vibe that something's wrong, that maybe how you're presenting isn't how you're feeling, they're going to start to react. And that's not very good. So it doesn't mean that we need to hide it. It means that we need to have some self-care. And I hope that a couple of the things that I've talked about and the general theme of this presentation is helping you to reach a point of emotional honesty, that you can reach a point where you can comfortably say, hey, I'm not doing so good. And then you can start to put in practices to prevent yourself from slipping further and to help yourself get back to where you'd like to be. If we're self-reflecting, then we're already on that path of emotional honesty, as long as we're being healthy with ourselves. As I talked about just a second ago with patience and empathy, those are crucial things to have for ourselves in understanding our emotional states. It's not denying that everything's fine. And if things are fine, brilliant, great, no worries. But it's also not ignoring if something's wrong. So say, for example, and this did happen to me, you get a splinter in your arm and it's no bigger than the head of a biro, right? We ignore it because, hey, it's just a little splinter. And over time it festers and you get like a nasty little blister. When you absently pick it off, go about your day, it comes back, go back, pick it off the day. And eventually it really starts to hurt and it gets a bit hot and it gets a bit gross. So you take the old tweezers, you dig this wretched thing out. Cool. You finally dealt with that problem. But now you're left with a big nasty scar and it's taken a long time. Like, yeah, it's out, but did it really have to take that long? Why didn't you deal with it in the first place? So I hope that kind of makes sense, that terrible analogy. Because the next part we're going to talk about is something called callousing the mind, okay? So there's this man called David Goggins, who is the force of human will made manifest. His accomplishments are Herculean and too long to list here. His gaze pierces into your soul and it's terrifying. You can find his videos on YouTube of this shirtless Adonis running across America, shouting at the camera, "They don't know me, son, they don't know me." Who they are, Mr. Goggins has not really disclosed, but what can be assessed is that they certainly don't know him. But what we can glean from his shouted encouragements as he sets out to run every inch of the earth is this idea of callousing the mind. And I know this sounds contradictory to what I just said, but what it is about learning to protect your emotions, your positive emotions, okay? It's building up this thick skin of positivity to prevent, when something does go wrong, to prevent that from ruining your day, from ruining your week, from ruining your month, whatever it is, you have that feeling in yourself of positivity that it bounces right off. It's that ability to keep on going when things go wrong, that you can stick an honest smile on your face and go, boy, that wasn't so good, but let's crack on, because you're not letting these negative things attach to you. Sometimes, our skills and drills and lessons fall apart, and we need to have that ability to keep going in a healthy way. And that's sort of what some of these ideas of like a positive mindset that we're hopefully developing goes towards. And a key factor in developing this mindset is self-care. For those of you that don't know, this is RuPaul, who has the eponymous saying, the Queen of Queens, I should say, is, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love someone else? And I realized as I wrote this basically summed up the whole of my presentation. I really should have just stuck this at the start, and then we could have spent the next 40 odd minutes, sitting peacefully in silence, having a bit of meditation. Anyway, so we know positivity is good, right? I mean, that's a standard. And hopefully, I've shown you some ways in which you can maintain that positivity and deal with some negativity. But what do we do when we're in that hole, or when things are looking bad? So to break it down, Barney the dinosaur style, we're going to find one positive thing, okay? And that's it. It is as frustratingly simple as that. It's one positive thing, okay? And it is incredibly small. It can be buttering a slice of toast perfectly. It can be shutting your front door without the keys getting caught. It can be teaching a great lesson. It can be having a wonderful day. It can be anything at all, no matter, so long as it's positive, okay? So that when you're having those tough times, when you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, questioning your life choices, which I assume everybody does, and not just me, you can combat these negative thoughts. And that is part of your armor with callousing the mind, and that positivity is that you have something you can hold on to. The point of this exercise, and the point of quite a few of these things, is forcing our minds to change, which sounds really weird, but it's very easy to fall into a negative mindset, to look only at the bad things, okay? If you are looking every day at one small positive thing, it's easier to see the other stuff. Like I talked about with the music, is if you're doing positive things, strangely enough, positive stuff seems to happen. Good things seem to happen. And that's kind of what this all boils down to. And it sounds so sickeningly stupid and simple, but that's like the biggest tool that we have. It's the biggest thing that we have, is just find something positive, and everything else kind of follows afterwards. And it sounds really bizarre and really weird, but it's true. So I've got here some resources that can help you go down this path of mindfulness. I've got a couple of books here. Wherever you go, there you are. And a little book of Ikagi. Those two are really good ones from my friends who are counselors and instructors in mindfulness and therapy in general. And I've got a couple that I found really useful. So the Blind Boy podcast is very much a lighter take on mental health, but it goes quite deep. The presenter, Blind Boy, is a comedian, but he's also a psychologist. So he comes up with some really interesting esoteric takes. You've got the Reset by Sam Delaney, and this one, is a little bit more geared towards men, just because in the UK, biggest killer of men under 50s is suicide. And Sam Delaney is a former alcoholic and drug addict, and it's him talking to other lads about mental health. Anybody can listen to it, but it's mostly men talking and expressing their feelings. And the last one is balm for the soul, because if you're having a rough day, stick this on and you'll feel great. It's Bob Mortimer and Paul Whitehouse gone fishing. It's two slightly old comedians fishing, and they talk about mental health, they talk about their memories, their experiences, and they make some jokes. My personal favorite is the joke that they have about the dog called Ted, who is continually looking for his briefcase. And when you watch it, you will understand. So that is the whistle-stop tour of a very rambly, self-indulgent idea of mindfulness. I've gone over by just over 3 minutes here to what I wanted, but if anyone has any questions or anything like that, or any feedback they'd like to give, please shout out.